was the dead of the night when two teenagers, covered in blood and sweat, stumbled out from the doors of a cheap-end aquarium. The parking lot was empty outside of a single dingy car. Asa might have been the opposite of a people person, but it still would have been nice to see another human face, if only to prove that she was finally free from that endless, fluorescent-lit hellhole.
That was the worst first date ever,
she shakily said. Yeah, that shit sucked major balls. Could have been worse though, Denji shrugged, earning an astonished glance from his date.
How?
She shouted. You didn't try killing me, even when that eternity fucker wanted you to. He seemed way too nonchalant about such a thing. Asa had managed to trump the Famine Devil's schemes and get the two of them out alive, even though killing Denji had always been the plan. How she had managed such a feat was too much of a headache to think about, so Asa wouldn't bother patting herself on the back. They got out, and that's all that mattered.
Don't take it personally. I'm in the Devil Hunters Club. It's my job to protect people from devils, or something. Anyone would have done the same.
Asa really wished she could have said that with more confidence. You'd be surprised, he said, and then didn't elaborate.
If that good for nothing ever tries something like that again, I'll pulverize her. Fucking Femi, thinking she knows better than me. It's obviously way too soon to kill the mud.
Yor growled in her ear, making Asa flinch at the abrupt comment. This was the first time she had heard from her doppelganger in... Asa actually wasn't sure for how long. The aquarium had lacked any sort of contact with the outside world, which made it impossible to gauge the passing of time.
How long do you think we were in there for?
Asa questioned. Ah, shit. It's all dark now, Denji exclaimed, only now realizing.
And we got here in the morning, so it's been at least a day.
Fuck. The last time we hadn't had to worry about time since it wasn't moving. Why the shitty rules gotta change now? Asa sighed, now long since fed up with Denji's odd comments. That guy absolutely refused to quit the Chainsaw Man roleplaying, even in life or death situations. Clearly, he was such a dumbass that he lacked basic survival instincts. The buses better still be fucking running. Now you're just waiting for me back home.
You need a ride back?
Asa offered, figuring she might as well extend the courtesy. You got a car? He asked. She vaguely gestured at the only car left in the parking lot in response. Looks a bit shit, Denji tactlessly said. If Asa hadn't just been through hell, she would have had the energy to suck him for that comment. Her car had, admittedly, seen better days, that was unquestionable. But it was a hand-me-down from her dead parents that she didn't have the money to keep in tip-top shape.
Do you want the fucking ride or not?
She snapped. Well, duh.
Then shut up before I change my mind.
Denji was about to argue, his sharp teeth bared like a dog's, but was halted by Asa's glare. With her hair undone, clothes dirty with blood, and eyes rimmed red, Asa figured she must look a mess. Denji thought she looked hot, or at least hotter than when she was nerding out over sea sponges. It helped that, despite her harsh words, she wasn't being a complete ass right now, on account of the whole not wanting to kill him thing. You're kinda hot. He wasn't afraid to voice these thoughts.
Just get in the car.
She flushed, unsure of how to take the compliment. The inside of Asa's car was the same as the outside, old and dirty. It was embarrassing. She shuffled a collection of fast food bags aside with her food while getting into the driver's seat, and even though her date didn't seem to mind, Asa still admonished herself for not cleaning up beforehand. Not that she had expected to be chauffeuring anyone tonight. Got any leftovers? Denji began to rummage through the crumpled bags.
Don't need any of that. I'm not sure how long it's been sitting there.
Asa cringed. It took her saying that out loud to realize how gross her car was. So, could still be edible, he said, taking out a lush of mush that might have once been a burger. It flew into his mouth before Asa had a chance to stop him. She had to swallow back puke at the sight.
Gross.
Yoru chimed in. Apparently even devils could be disgusted with this guy.
You...
Asa floundered before slumping over in defeat. Scolding Denji seemed like too much of a task right now.
Where do you live?
Denji recited his address and she, thankfully, recognized the area. Her car hardly saw much use outside of getting her to and from school, and she'd panic majorly every time she was on an unfamiliar street. The drive started off silent. That one burger seemed to satisfy Denji for now, so he didn't touch any more of Asa's garbage. This was of great relief to the girl, since she probably would have driven the both of them into a ditch before allowing Denji a bite out of anything else in this car. At some point, the silence started to get to her. This was the longest she had ever hung out with a boy, even if it was one as screwed as Denji, and the awkwardness forced Asa to stoop to horrid lengths. Small talk.
So, who's Nayute?
She asked, recalling the name from earlier. My daughter. Asa nearly crashed the car.
Watch it!
Yoru shouted at her, taking control for a moment in order to prevent a random pedestrian from being clotheslined by the vehicle. Denji didn't notice the commotion.
Your daughter?
Asa squeaked once she was resettled in her body. Yeah, Nayute's pretty fucking sweet. You'd like her cause she's really into animals too. Doesn't ramble though. Wanted to go see the penguins with me, but bringing your kid to a date's pretty lame. Ended up being a good call cause of all this devil bullshit. Asa gulped nervously.
How old is she?
About 5.
Months?
She inquired. Denji only shrugged in response, which really wasn't much of an answer at all. It had to be months, right? Because if it wasn't, and Nayute was 5 years old, then that would paint a really disturbing picture. Denji couldn't be much older than her, if older at all. Having a child that old would mean he'd been a child himself when Nayute was conceived. The thought made Asa's fingers grip on the wheel turn bone white.
Oh, this is some good guilt. If killing Denji means leaving an orphan behind, that would make him an even better weapon.
Yoru hissed in her ear unhelpfully.
What about the mom?
Asa fought to keep her tone casual and the car steady. Miss Makima's dead, he said shortly.
Oh, that sucks.
Asa was god-awful at comforting people. Yeah, I guess. It's complicated.
Why do you call her Miss?
She asked, attempting to change the subject. She was my boss. Asa's stomach dropped. I don't want to talk about this anymore. It makes my brain feel shitty.
Okay.
She trailed off uncomfortably. The following silence was even worse than the one that preceded and somewhat prompted this conversation. Asa felt like ripping hairs out of her scalp or curling up into a ball and dying. What was she supposed to say about any of this? That sucks is hardly an appropriate reaction, but it was all Asa could think right then, and she wasn't even sure on the specifics yet. I can't pay for gas money, by the way. Denji suddenly said, despite this being something he should have mentioned before getting in the car.
It's fine. I already figured that was the case. You already mentioned being broker than broke, despite scamming homeless people.
Asa mumble growled that last part, but Denji overheard anyways. Hey, it's not my fault our dumbass school won't allow part-time jobs. Nayuta needed some stuff like books and food, so who cares how I got the money for it? She wanted to scream. Denji scamming homeless people was why she had targeted him in the first place, since she felt better about killing a scummy person rather than a good one. But apparently he was doing it for his daughter. How was she supposed to go through with this now?
You have to. If it's not Denji, then it will be someone else. And it's pointless if you don't feel guilty over the kill. It's like you said, right? A necessary evil? You can't back out now.
Yoru reminded her coldly. The words made her shudder. Yoru wasn't wrong, and it made Asa want to cry. She didn't want to kill anyone, but what choice did she really have? Yuka's fate still hung heavy over her head, which meant Denji's death at her hands was unavoidable, even if she had prolonged it for tonight. Hey, this is my street. Asa parked completely on autopilot. It was a miracle that she managed it cleanly, considering how slick her palms were with sweat. The two walked up to the third floor of his apartment building without further conversation. Asa felt lightheaded with guilt, and she knew it was only about to get worse once actually meeting Nayuta. Each step she took filled her with more dread. The doorbell Denji rang might as well have been a death knell to her. After a few moments of waiting, he rang it again.
Did you lose your keys or something?
I don't like doors, he said, as if that made any sense. Nayuta will get it. And get it she did. Immediately after, in fact, as if Denji's words were spoken into reality. The face that greeted Asa upon the door's opening made her heart sink. That was definitely not a 5-month-old baby. That was a whole-ass child. A child with wide and uncanny eyes that tickled at the back of her brain. That meant Denji was a pre-teen when whatever happened had happened. Asa felt sick at the realization. If that Miss Makima wasn't already dead, then Asa would have had many words for her. Words that would result in her body being used as a weapon against Chainsaw Man.
You probably wouldn't feel enough guilt to turn her into anything good.
Yoru cut in as if Asa wasn't already aware of that fact. For a moment, Asa wondered why she felt so personally incentivized. Before dismissing it as common sense, anyone would want to kill a pedophile if given the chance, right? It wasn't because she cared about Denji or anything. She didn't have the right to.
They're coming.
Nayuta's first words to her were surprisingly cryptic. Before Asa could piece together her thoughts and question what the girl meant, she was already being bowled over by several dogs. She shrieked. Denji was better prepared, however, and when Asa began to tilt backwards, he caught her by the shoulder. His hand was surprisingly large. While she wasn't sure how she felt about that, her heart pounded nonetheless. Yeah, I'm home. Settle down, you guys.
Food?
Nayuta asked, hugging onto her father's leg. On it, he nodded. Denji began to walk inside his apartment, though he had to bevel his leg out with each step since Nayuta still clung onto it. It looked both cute and uncomfortable. He suddenly looked back over his shoulder and met Asa's gaze. Hey, you want to stay for dinner? The grumbling of her stomach answered for her. Neither of them had anything to eat in that aquarium, and now that the adrenaline was wearing off, the hunger was hitting Asa all at once. Even if Denji's cooking was dog shit, it probably would be, it was still food, and she was hardly a good chef herself. Her fridge might not even be stocked right now. Not to mention, Denji's stunt earlier made fast food seem unappealing.
If you're offering.
She answered, shuffling her feet awkwardly. Denji's apartment was surprisingly clean, or at least it was relatively clean, considering that it housed a teenage boy, his daughter, and a minimum of 9 dogs. Asa hadn't counted. The fact it was habitable at all was impressive. Honestly, Asa's apartment probably looked worse. She legitimately couldn't remember the last time she'd done more than a quick surface-level cleaning. Pretty pathetic of her.
Food?
Nayuta chirped once more. How does potato curry sound? Denji asked the two of them.
Fine by me,
Asa answered. He set to work in the kitchen without further ado. Nayuta finally unhooked from his leg, only to climb onto his back instead as Denji began peeling potatoes, completely unbothered by her weight. Did you feed the dogs, Nayuta? Good girl. This earned her a pat on the head, which she preened over. Or, at least, Asa thought she did. It was difficult to tell due to the girl's deadpan expression. For all of Denji's many faults, Asa couldn't deny that he was a good dad, though it was hardly something she could appreciate considering her circumstances. This father-daughter bonding would have been a lot cuter to witness if she wasn't planning Denji's death. One day, she was gonna take all of this away, just because she was too selfish to bear the burden of Yoru's annoying presence.
You're way more annoying than I am,
Yoru commented, which Asa ignored. With all the guilt squirming in her stomach serving as a distraction, Asa struggled to watch the domestic scene play out. After a certain point, the two Hayakawas seemingly forgot she was there at all. They were both just so caught up in their own, mostly one-sided conversation. Denji described how he almost got murdered by a devil earlier, featuring more gory details than a girl her age should hear, and Nayuta would occasionally hum in response. She wasn't a very talkative child. The time passed by quickly as Denji's vulgar rambling became background music and the scent of spices filled the apartment air. It honestly smelled really good, and once a bowl of potato curry was plopped down in front of her, Asa realized it looked really good too.
Oh, wow. This looks amazing.
Fuck yeah, it does. You ain't gonna taste anything better than my cooking, he claimed with pride, but Asa figured that was a bit far.
Papa's food is the best,
Nayuta confirmed. This was a long-winded sentence by her standards. The three sat down to eat without further ado, and Asa soon realized that the Hayakawa family had little to no table manners. Denji, when he wasn't chewing with his mouth wide open, had to fight off the dogs attempting to steal their food, accidentally making more of a mess in the process. It certainly didn't help that Nayuta kept trying to sneak bites of her own plate to the dogs, which Denji also had to stop. At some point, the family's lone cat, Meowie, decided to join in on the fun. It ended up making a perch of itself on Asa's lap. She appreciated the weight grounding her. It helped keep her from being overwhelmed by all the noise and commotion. Plus, she just liked cats. Mealtime was absolute chaos, and judging by how practiced it all seemed, it was probably the standard for this household. Asa found it somewhere in between traumatizing and charming. Either way, it certainly beats eating an unevenly cooked microwave meal in her lonesome. The longer she spent here, the harder it was to keep herself from nodding off and crashing face first into the plate of hot curry. The exhaustion of surviving a devil encounter was finally catching up to her now that the adrenaline had finished running its course. After enough times tossing off and then jerking back awake, Denji finally noticed her predicament. You dying or something? He cracked a brow.
Just
A yawn interrupted her.
is tired, considering the day we had. You aren't?
Guess I'm used to it. Could keep going forever if it felt like it. Denji shrugged. She was extremely jealous of his seemingly endless energy. Some days she could barely make it out of bed.
Is Devil Lady gonna sleep over?
Nayuta suddenly piped up. Asa spit curry everywhere.
Oh, shit.
Yoru said.
Not a devil, little girl? Why would you say that?
She panicked. Nayuta only stared in response, eyes piercing directly into her soul, and after a stare down that made Asa's hands clammy and face pallid, Nayuta only pointed to her nose and gave a comically exaggerated sniff in response. Asa had no idea what that meant. "You're a devil?" Denji said with a considering glare. Somehow the teenager, who Asa had previously only seen as some loser, felt dangerous at this moment. His eyes, dark with an emotion she couldn't decipher, made Asa feel like prey faced against a rabid hound, moments away from being hunted down. But suddenly, Denji's threatening aura vanished as he shrugged. Whatever. Long as you don't do anything wrong, I ain't gonna murderize you." He continued eating. "Couch is a pullout if you want to stay the night."
Thanks?
She mumbled. "No problem." He spoke through a mouthful of food.
I'm not a devil, though. Like, seriously.
Denji was seemingly unconvinced, yet uncaring. Meanwhile, his daughter was still staring at her, unblinkingly. Asa had no idea what was happening anymore. This entire day, from start to finish, had been a headache, in multiple ways she'd like to mention. Slipping into a temporary coma sounded really good about now. She'd appreciate the break from reality. She considered making a better counter-argument than, "I am not a devil, promise," but found that she lacked the drive to. Something told her that Denji wouldn't believe her anyways. But what exactly could he do with that information anyways? Turn her into the Public Safety Division or any other devil hunter? She wasn't a devil, technically, so that would amount to nothing without evidence. And it's not like he could do anything on his own. Sure, he handled himself decently against the Eternity Devil earlier, but he was still only a regular human. Even a weakened War Devil would be capable of taking him on, and it's not like his claims of being Chainsaw Man were real or anything.
Finished,
Nayuta said, showing off her clean plate. This prompted Yoru to speak.
We should kill the brat too. I don't like her knowing about us.
Strangely, after saying this, Nayuta stared directly at the empty space that Yoru occupied to Asa and Asa only. It freaked both of them out. "Alright, that means bedtime for you,"
What story?
she whined. "The mouse one?" he asked, sounding already resigned to his fate. "I've gotta do the dishes first. Go brush your teeth and shit." Denji ruffled her hair once before the little girl scurried off. She threw one last eerie glance their way as she left. As Denji began gathering and stacking the dishes, Asa decided to make herself useful, regardless of how exhausted she was. Maybe some of the manners her mother drilled into her stuck around, even after her death.
Here, let me help.
She carried the dishes over to the sink. Thankfully, this wasn't one of her legendary tripping moments. "Oh, thanks," he said, trailing at her heel like an oversized puppy. The two soon found themselves near shoulder to shoulder as soapy water prickled at their fingertips. Only 3 plates had been used, but a few had already culminated in the sink beforehand. Might as well wash all of them while she was at it. At some point, as they each tackled their own shares of the mess, Asa's fingertips accidentally brushed against Denji's own. She pulled back immediately, and Denji looked bemused at the reaction. She could feel her face turning beet red. It wasn't her fault she wasn't used to being this close to a boy. Or maybe it was, since reciting several books worth of sea creature facts apparently didn't make her heart throb. "So, you spent the night or not?" he inquired.
I guess I will. Knowing my luck, I'd probably end up in a car accident if I tried driving while this tired.
Asa found back a yawn as she spoke. After they finished cleaning, Denji showed her how the pull-out couch worked. It didn't look very comfortable, but Asa couldn't care at this point. Before he could head off to read Naota goodnight, Yodo suddenly took over the party to ask an asinine question.
Hey, Hayakawa.
"Denji. Call me Denji. I don't like being called Hayakawa." There was a distant look in his eyes.
Well then, Denji. How do you feel about another date?
The devil asked, obviously eager to trap the boy further in her scheme. Asa screamed at the back of their shared mind. How could she be so forward after the mess that was this last one? Denji stopped in place, looking at him from her place outside of his awareness. Asa struggled to place the look in his eyes. With each second that passed, left the girl feeling more and more distressed. If her body were still her own, she'd surely be sweating bullets right now. Suddenly, he smiled. It was crooked. Asa's spectral heart, for whatever reason, skipped a beat at the side. Somehow she found it cute, despite that being a word which didn't match Denji in the slightest. But all of those odd, bubbly feelings vanished the second he opened his mouth. "Only if you're paying,"